Hey everyone. This headline sounds like something I would have put on for a headline. Lawrence Solomon from the National Post. Trump just might make us put on our big boy pants and make Canada great again. I use that terminology all the time about putting on the big boy pants because, yeah, I mean, come the fuck on. Whether you want to call it the wussification, the pussification, or the feminization, or whatever. I mean, where the fuck have all the goddamn strong, independent people? Like, it's, I seem like this lone character. Well, there's a few of us, but we seem like lone characters in a sea of a bunch of docile, conformist, fucking subservients and slaves and serfs. It's hilarious, and it's not just out on the internet. I like to tell myself at times, oh no, these are just people on the internet, and they're going to be political in nature and da da da. But no, even when I'm out in public, I see it's like shit. Nope, it's not just on the internet. It's actually out in the real world too. And it fucking sucks. It bothers me tremendously. Because, I mean, I'm not even the biggest, baddest, strongest guy. Not even close to that. But I feel like a fucking giant for some reason. And why? Because at least when I look out there, I'm one of the few people that's willing to speak out. Why is no one else willing to speak out? I don't, like I say, probably because they benefit from all this fucking collective mysticism or rampant fucking theft and wealth redistribution in the state, right? Because that's what the state does. Most of the time, people, when they speak up, out, or in opposition, well, the state, rather than trying to, the PR campaign would be terrible if you just used always brute force and authoritarian against them. So for the most part, if they recognize that these are people that will at least kind of try to, hey, if they're stupid or they're partially indoctrinated or believers in the state, well, let's just bring them under the tent. So, you might even have to grease their palms a little bit or do whatever. Whereas people myself, like, you can't buy me. Central planners, people like that, they fucking hate me. Plus, like, I'm in one of the most amazing positions in my life to be able to do what I do. And I recognize that. I have no outstanding debts. I don't own any banks. Fucking shit. Even my mortgage is paid off at this stage. So, yeah, I don't own any credit cards. I don't owe any banks any fucking money. My car's been paid for a long time. It's an old car. My wife's car, same thing. I mean, they're not old, but yeah, they're at least 10 years old, right? So they've been paid for. We don't have any fucking, like I say. So we're in great positions, and I'm in an excellent position, and considering the kind of person I am, that I stand up for myself anyways, it's like I'm in a perfect position. That's why I guess I assumed that role, that responsibility to speak out when other people are absent and unwilling to do so. Let's start in this article and see what's the gentleman again? Lawrence Solomon. Let's see what Lawrence got to say here, because I see some of this, especially in the National Post. Some of the contributors to the National Post are finally coming around, and I'm very grateful and very appreciative of the fact they are, because, like I said before, my small page, my YouTube channel, or even though I'm expanding out on Minds and VidMe and different places now, but I have a minuscule reach in comparison to these people. So I'm hoping that I'll at least take on the mantra and at least help disseminate some of the bullshit propaganda put forth by all the leftist media, right? I mean, that's just a little bit of balance. Fuck's sakes, really. I mean, we're not expecting a whole lot. Let's not pretend we're in a global free market when it comes to agriculture. Well, obviously not. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau finally told a persistent John Micklethwait, Bloomberg's editor-in-chief, in an interview Thursday. Trudeau had been baffled gabbling Micklethwait's inquiry into Canada's position on NAFTA and free trade in an attempt to avoid admitting Canadian hypocrisy in preaching free trade while practicing protectionism. Exactly. So they're going to talk about Trump trying to turn towards more protectionist trade practices, right? But of course, Ken, I mean, supply management, I mean, Canada's so fucking, it's one of the most quasi-socialist countries on the planet. I mean, if they pushed it much further, Canada would become like Venezuela. So just like some of these Nordic countries, they know how to keep playing that third way game. But but see, the leftists are trying to push that goalpost constantly, right? So how far they want to get to that precipice, to that edge, I don't know. The interview demonstrated Trudeau's inability to counter the essential truth of President Donald Trump's assessment that Canada has not been acting honorably. Pointed to Canada's attempt to manipulate cross-border dairy trade. Okay, first of all, there's no such thing as free trade anywhere on the planet, okay? There's all a bunch of central planners. There's freer trade, and there's less free trade, but there's no such thing as actual free trade. And all you got to do is, this is the thing that kills me about people nowadays. Fuck, man, you got Google or anywhere else, even if you want to use different services, there's dictionaries that are free online. It'll take you a few seconds to learn what these terms mean. Look what free trade means and then ask yourself, is there free trade? And you'll know. No. Trump had threatened on Tuesday to make some very big changes or we are going to get rid of NAFTA for once and for all. And Micklethwait noted that every Canadian family pays several $100s more for their milk bill per year to protect Canada's dairy industry. I actually covered that in my past video on the East Coast. The funny part, when I lived in New Brunswick, this is the crazy part. I lived in the central part of it, so, you know, about an hour northeast of Fredericton. But even Sussex, which would only be about an hour and a half away from where I live, which is the big, where all the farmers and the dairy farms are. But it's like, so an hour and a half away is all these dairy farms, right? And I live in rural parts of New Brunswick, the East Coast, and yet to go to the store and buy, like, you know, your 3 bags of milk, which equals to 4 liters, is like $7-8. What? What? I mean, come the fuck on. Why are you paying so much money? Well, it's all about this protectionism, right? And bullshit, this central planning, they have so much control. Like I say, there's no free market fundamentals, and not in any of our countries. The only free market that you actually will ever see that is as close to an actual free market as you will ever know that exists, but watch and see how well it actually works. And it's much more beneficial to you. It's called the black market, right? The free market is basically nowadays the black market, where you have no regulations, central planning dictates, you know, people that get to control the industry. The black market is the only thing left that even somewhat resembles the free market, but it's not free because it has to function under the radar, and there's still the possibility of state actors using force and violence against you, right? Free market would just be in bring that out, shine the light on, let people do exactly what they do, right? Everything done voluntarily. Nobody has any ability or pretense to use authority or force against each other. Nobody has the pretense. I mean, force could still be used, but nobody has the pretense that, oh, I must submit to you in the black market, right? No, it's pure competition. Real competition. There's nobody going to yield or obey to one particular group just because, oh, you got the power of government now. No. Nobody gets to monopolize anything in an actual free market or black market. Trudeau ultimately conceded Canada's dairy protectionism, albeit with much deserved awkwardness, since Canada's dairy quota system has been Canada's shame since it was introduced in 1970. The quota system makes milk prohibitively expensive for poor families. No shit. It denies Canadian consumers the right to purchase diverse cheese from around the world, and it destroyed Canada's once great cheese industry, whose many small producers capitalize on milk surpluses to make world-famous cheddars. Ontario alone once supplied England with half its cheddar cheese imports. So like I say, central planning always fucks everything up, right? Free markets is what, and free markets, once again, look up the word and you'll see what it means. Just everybody being free from force and coercion, theft and oppression. So free markets, it's always a good thing, unless you're the kind of person that only benefits by using force, theft, and coercion and oppression as a means to an end. Then it's not good for you, but it is for the majority of the people. Over the decades, the dairy lobby's hold in Canada's corridors of power was unshakable, surviving intense pressure in numerous trade negotiations under numerous governments. But its hold is shaking today. Under pressure from Trump, Canada may finally do the right thing for the Canadian consumer and the Canadian economy by removing this albatross and forcing Canada's politicians to put on their big boy pants. Many are now noting the irony that Trump's desire to make America great gives long-suffering Canadians hope for an end to their dairy quotas. Anyways, I'm not going to read any more into this. I'm starting to think this might even have a little something to do with the CETA agreement that Canada signed with the European Union, because you know in the European Union, especially France and places like that, they're going to be able to export a lot of their cheese and dairy products to Canada. So like I said, I don't know all the underlying fundamentals or why this is being brought up or talked about now, but I'll tell you, at least look at it. You're getting some truth. if you have the ability to weed through all the shit and read between the lines, you will at least get some sense of truth as to some of the realities that exist. And what I have, and what we all are at least taking away from this is Canada is very much protectionist, very, like I say, soul-centered plan. So whether you want to call it communist or socialist, although because we have some underlying fundamentals or aspects of capitalism, it's this quasi-third way, and nobody's even really given it a name, although fascism is a term, cronyism. There's lots of terms that people haven't used, but there isn't one single term that would identify this third wave or third way other than it's been referred to as the third way, where you combine socialism and capitalism together. But what we're seeing now in this modern world, in this modern era that we live in, is, you know, the producers are feeling too much of the weight and the burden, whereas the parasites are gaining too much power and influence. And that's where the balance, once that balance is affected, and that's why you're seeing this rise of all this bullshit and of the alt-right or the supposed, what do they call them, extremists or the right-wingers, like, or the fascists, right? It's a reaction. So I don't even, well, even actually if you look at, even with the rise of Hitler stuff, that was a reactionary process and something that happened as a result of shit that happened prior to that, right? It was reactionary. And what you're seeing today with Trump, right? Brexit. But look at the rise of these populist right wing. And it's not that people have all of a sudden chosen to just be right wingers or something like, and I mean, even like the pretense of, well, you have to look through a lot of my videos if you want to learn about the whole left-right divide as far as politics goes. But why is this stuff happening? It's reactionary, right? It didn't happen just out of nowhere. It's reactionary to all these central planners, these egotistical fucking, like I say, all these so-called experts, all these leftists, all these collectivists, these central planning collectivists. What you're seeing now, and even though others are using the collective mentality, because like I say, you got to have a gang to fight a gang, right? So you got a lot of collectivists now that'll go from the right-wingers, right? So like I say, this is the fucking failure, whereas people like myself, it's all about the individual and individual rights and liberty. Oh, we're just, the best we get is being able to spew words on any kind of platform we can, because yeah, we're not going to join a collective, you know, we're not part of any gang or group, right? We're just people trying to speak truth to reason and try to create some semblance of understanding. We're trying to help educate and inform the people so that you can make better decisions. And the best decision you could do, if you're going to choose to fucking keep promoting this or propagating this political system, then, you know, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. We all know that. So if you want to at least keep things, it's never going to be proper under a political system, but at least keep the turnover rate very high with politicians, because the longer they remain in power and they become what is considered the establishment, then they're more entrenched and it's more difficult to weed them out. So yes, have the courage and convictions to at least keep the turnover rate, keep switching them out so they don't feel so secure in putting forth and presenting their particular ideology. But if you're looking, especially in Canada, the leftists, and now with fucking Trudeau, a feminist, self-described feminist, and all these feminists running the provincial governments, and now with women, which would be self-described as feminists in government, make up 71% of public sector workers, and there's now over 1 or 2 million of them in a country of Canada with only 36 million, which works out to be with the adult age population of working people that would be able to go into politics. So you're looking at about 1 in 5, between 1 in 5 and 1 in 6. I mean, look at how fucking, like I said, this race to the bottom, I mean, it's only going to keep leading to the bottom. You're never going to be able to lift or elevate anyone as long as you continue on the same path, because that path only leads one place. The only way you're going to be able to ever change things properly is to change course. If you're heading down the same path, don't expect any real change. Might be small, slight changes in the scenery, but you're still heading down that same fucking shitty old path. Real change means getting rid of and weeding out all the establishment, not just people, but political parties, so that nobody feels empowered or emboldened enough to put forth and present their own narrative, their own ideology, to the point where they're going to make that happen and force everyone else to abide and yield to that ideology or their edicts. It's Canadian Libertarian, and I love, liberty.